Welcome to the Coolnomics podcast. I'm Robyn Wilson, the founder of Coolnomics.
I'm Fiona MacDonald, culture journalist and a media entrepreneur. And today we are getting stuck into a very timely topic, ChatGPT's image generation capabilities, which have just been launched about a week ago as we're recording this. And this ties in really well with the first major theme trend pulse from our Resonance Report 2025, which is changing intelligence. The nature of intelligence is shifting in 2025, and that is in a hybrid sense, like our intelligence merging with AI in a sense, but also in the sense of public discourse and collective intelligence, and our economic intelligence is shifting, which we will get into more in this episode. But first of all, have you played with ChatGPT's new image software? I want to hear all about it. I want to hear what you're seeing, what you're noticing, what you're doing. Tell me all.
Yeah, of course. I guess us and the millions of people on LinkedIn and Instagram playing with the, GPT's 4.0 image generator. I played with the Muppets kind of skew. I didn't touch the Studio Ghibli or, you know what? Actually, I tried because I'm really interested in the legal side of this picture, right? This is really exciting and interesting that we can suddenly now execute imagery. We can execute the graphic side of the picture, which is really good. But of course, that raises huge ethical and legal implications. And I did find it interesting, Fee, that when I asked it to take one of my professional portraits and recreate me as Minnie Mouse, so I thought, let's see how Disney is engaging. If Ghibli has been able to be utilized in this way to repeat their patterns and reproduce other people's images in a Ghibli style. Disney, what are they doing? And there are blockers around Disney. I found it gave me an image that was Disney inspired, but when I said no, I want to look like Minnie Mouse, ears, bows, etc., polka dots, it said we cannot do that. Disney is protected in some way, which was really interesting. So I think it's a real minefield, but I think it's a really exciting, interesting time. Also, finally, the aesthetics. Like, the aesthetics are hot. This is Coolnomics. I'm sorry. Yes, the ethical implications, and we're going to unpack all of this today, holding the simultaneous truths, but it's hot imagery, Fee. Like, it's really high grade aesthetics. It's detailed and beautiful. What's yours?
Yeah, I have played around a little bit, maybe less than other people. My husband has been like recreating like all of the childhood images of our daughter in like Ghibli style, which is super adorable, of our dog. So I have played around a little bit, probably not as much as other people. I mean, everyone on my feed is recreating stuff. I saw that Sam Altman tweeted that they, like, their whole CPU was maxed out. No one's sleeping in their team. They're like, slow it down, guys, which is, it's just really interesting because obviously it's not news. I mean, in the media landscape, we've already, I personally haven't been, but there's a lot of media that are already generating AI images. That's not totally new, that AI can recreate or generate these really beautiful, aesthetically hot photos based on a concept that a human comes up with. Like, that's not totally news, but I think what makes it really exciting and really different with ChatGPT is, first of all, so many of us have ChatGPT accounts already. We're already using it, and it's so easy and it's quite quick. And I feel like for me, the few times I played with it, it really required a little bit less creative direction than some of the other image software out there. And maybe that's because right now we're all using as pattern recognition, that we will talk about a bit later. But, the trend at the moment is like, recreating the style of the Muppets. And I love the Muppet. You made me a little Muppet of my headshot too. I think we have to share them because they're quite adorable. But I'd say so myself. I didn't have 3 feet like you did. But yeah, I think that it's going to be an interesting time. I think that it's a capability, something that we already knew AI could do. But I think this has really brought it into a whole new space where, like, anyone who's ever used GPT in 5 minutes can make a Ghibli really cute image, a really cute version of their headshot. And whether or not, I mean, at the moment it feels kind of gimmicky, like, as in, like, everyone's playing with it because it's fun and it's great. But I guess it's so new, it's hard to know long term what this is actually going to mean for industries and businesses, and the creative industry in particular. It's kind of hard to cut through, like, what's hype, what's actually going to be useful. And of course, as you talked about before, the legal ramifications we're only just beginning to see. I mean, I've seen that Ghibli has spoken out about OpenAI using their pattern recognition, their patterns, to create these images. Yeah, I think it's just very early days, and I'm watching it keenly, and kind of trying to figure out what the next steps are and where we go from here.
Yeah, it's a paradigmic shift, isn't it? A way, if you take the execution part of the creative process, you've got, concept, strategy, develop the idea, and then actually execute it in image, word, sound, whatever the medium might be. If you can suddenly take that execution part of the picture and make it faster, easier, and cheaper, where are we then? Yes, that does change the craft of what it is to be someone who creates something in the world, someone who markets, products, someone who develops products, someone who develops strategy. It's a paradigmic shift in the way that we understand ourselves. And that's why in this report and across this season, we're talking about the nature of intelligence itself changing, us and the machine, us iterating, human idea, machine, iterate it, make it a little bit better. Human, take that, feed it back into the human machine. So it's all kind of flowing together. And I think, we're seeing it in real time with our clients that it's not in the future now. It's already here. We're working with one of our education clients on the way that this, they can take immediate steps to bring use AI in their marketing, product development, customer experience. Sorry, on a very simple level, that's the first way to start. But the next level really is developing whole new products and experiences with AI at the heart of it, and AI as the enabler. The technology is always just the enabler. What's your idea? What's your offering? What's your product? What's the story that you want to tell? What momentum do you want to create in the market that has magic and meaning and stickiness to it? That's where we're heading to now. When execution changes, when execution becomes easier, then the strength of your ideas become much more important. So I think it's a really interesting time with a bunch of factors that are both challenges and opportunities. Hey?
I think that's the exciting part for me too. As creative leader, I run a website called Science Alert. I'm one of the co-founders, and we already, I think journalists all had this moment like 2 years ago, I can't even remember. Everything's moving so fast, but we all freaked out before about what the power of words will be when ChatGPT can create articles so quickly. But I wouldn't say that panic is totally lessened. There's obviously still a lot of chat about the role of AI, how it can help journalists rather than get in the way. But I also think that, we found that setting yourself apart as a product, as a leader, as a brand actually is still quite simple. I mean, at the heart of it, it comes down to like how well you know your clients, how well are you using your data, how well are you serving their needs, whether it's your readers on a website, whether it's a fashion client. I think that AI can help us do all those things, and I don't think it can replace. I mean, we've seen so many other science news sites, for example, but also other major media websites using AI, and the articles kind of flop. They don't, and it's not because I don't think it's necessarily because people are against there are some people really ethically against reading anything written by AI, but I don't necessarily think that that's the reason it flops. It just it lacks that human soul. It lacks that kind of human experience, human connection, human relationship that humans can bring. But then, there are still a lot of potential benefits. Even, one of the ways that I use this a lot in my work is data analysis, like really getting stuck into our analytics, trying to understand our audience better, and using AI as a second brain to be like, hey, what are you seeing out there? What are the patterns in our data that I'm missing because I'm a human brain who isn't great at volume data? Anyway, so there are a lot of ways to use this. And I think what's really cool is applying the Coolnomics lens, because obviously, as I said, this is one of the major themes from the Resonance Report 2025, identifying these huge pulses that are going to send ripples throughout the creative business government space in 2025. And one of them was changing intelligence. So it's kind of cool, I guess, to put the Coolnomics hat on and go, this is something we predicted. Obviously, it wasn't that hard to predict. I think everyone has sort of had an idea that intelligence is shifting, but also taking it to that next level and really looking into how intelligence itself, not just AI, but how is human intelligence changing to keep up with the new technology that's coming around. Obviously, my feed is quite full of, understandably, right now, there's either people playing around with images, it's flooded with people being like, look at me and Ghibli, so cute. Or there is total outrage, like we have to stop this. This is illegal, ethically wrong. And there are huge environmental concerns, which we'll get to a bit later as well. But what are you seeing in terms of your clients and also your network, how they're feeling about this kind of from a legal standpoint, I guess.
Sure. So of course, a lot of my feed is a lot of cultural and creative people, designers, people that I've known over the years. And so there's a really strong element of outrage, right? Particularly in the case of Ghibli. We all know this, this is very ethically problematic to take the IP, the vision, the visual storytelling, and even the sensibility of a Ghibli and suddenly extract the core of that IP and allow anyone to reproduce anything in that style, and therefore sharing that cultural capital, that territory with Studio Ghibli. Absolutely hugely problematic. Now, what we want to be able to do though, and what we have to be able to do as leaders, is hold two simultaneous truths. If we can just remove the outrage for a moment and hold a slightly more neutral view and start to see the philosophical questions that it's raising for us and the opportunities that it's raising in terms of, well, what is creativity? What is IP? How do our legal structures and, fiscal and distribution structures allow us to scale IP effectively? So in the case of IP, a lot of these lawsuits aren't working against OpenAI, and their use of source data, because the current legal system and the structure of legislation is much more focused on the actual asset and protecting singular items or collections of items. In the case of AI, this is about creative patterns. It's about, be able to teach an LLM, this is how Ghibli would draw a picture, not here's a picture, replicate it. This is on a whole other level. This is in the meta, right? So we need new laws that can enable us to, bring the right protections and consider the ethical side of things, but also unlock and allow the leveraging of this new technology on a paradigmic level for the world. What is it to be a visionary? What is it to be a strategic person bringing new ideas into the world? It causes us to take a much longer view, doesn't it? To be able to look out and to say, where can I take this? How does this integrate into what my business does at its core, right? What is the meaning that we create as a business? What is the feeling that we have in someone's life? What is the sensibility of what we stand for? That's actually the core. And then you consider, how is that deployed across medium and how can AI enable that? So that's just some of my thinking around it, holding simultaneous truths, the legal side of things, and then even, using blockchain to enable assets to be owned and then distributed across, a global audience, and have the original creator rewarded monetarily for their work. What about you, Fee? There's some of the things that I'm seeing in my world.
Yeah, very similar. I mean, I love hearing you talk about it. I find it really refreshing. I think one of the things I am struggling with is I personally don't, I think that the zeitgeist is always moving forward. I said that last episode too, but, I think that there's a real tendency, and this happens in science all the time too, when new technology comes around, we just want to put our head in the sand, put it back in the box. We just don't want to talk about it. Or we want to talk about it, but say, this is how potentially bad it could be. These are the worst case scenarios. This is, everyone could lose their jobs. We could have no creative talent ever coming out again. Everything will become iterative. There'll be nothing new, no new ideas generated. I don't think that's the truth. I think that humans are so clever. I think we're always coming up with new ideas. I just don't think that there's any technology in the world that could completely stunt human creativity and, artistic expression. I don't think that's true. Maybe I'm an optimist, but I can't see that future. One thing I am not totally across, but I know you will be. What are we seeing brands doing in this space?
Sure. Well, I guess a really high profile one is H&M at the moment are taking quite a transparent and responsive approach to a new innovation, right? Which is the best way to do it. So this idea of theirs to develop, I think it's 20 AI models or digital twins that are all based on a real human being. So that is 20 or 25 real human beings, models in the flesh, who then are recreated as a digital twin, which is, a fundamental concept of creating a digital twin. You can create a digital twin of the entire world, of an entire city. It's a concept in technology. So of course you can do it for a human, but the way that they deploy, so that's an idea, right? And we've seen other wellness brands in the last 12 months cast cast campaigns using fully AI models, and it's had a really mixed response. And generally, I would say it skews to the negative. What is this? This is fake. This is weird. Yes, it is. It's quite a surreal thing. So the way that H&M does this, which they need to progress forward, right? Again, as we say, the zeitgeist is always moving forward. We can't bury our head in the sands. This is about being a modern leader and being able to see the entire landscape, the challenges and opportunities in front of us, and rolling up our sleeves and saying, right, what are we going to do about this? So in the case of H&M, those 20 digital twins, the original IP for those twins will still be owned by the human beings, by those models.
Wow, that's so cool.
Which means that they retain the rights to, you know, their likeness and their visual existence. So then they can be compensated in the ways that H&M actually use them in their own campaigns, but also very importantly, those models will also have the autonomy to be able to then take their digital twin to other brands and make money from that. So see how that's like on a paradigmic level, on a fundamental level, we're saying, okay, this technology is here. We've got a market to serve. We want to increase our efficiency, our speed, and our effectiveness of our marketing. And we need to take care of the people whose IP we are utilizing. That's the kind of model that you want to be looking at. How can we enable the person to allow their creativity, their existence, their contribution? In the case of a model, it's their, you know, their visual and their sensibility that they're bringing to the space. How can we, remove the blockers to doing that well and doing it effectively? So I think H&M are doing an interesting job of it. What about you, Fee? What else? What are you seeing?
I actually haven't heard about that. That's so cool. So H&M, they're creating this for the models. So basically they're kind of investing a little bit to create the digital twins and then saying, okay, well, you own. Okay, I love that. That's really great. I actually haven't seen anything the past week. Obviously, I've seen a lot of chatter. I haven't seen any huge brands on my radar as yet, any media brands who have come out and gone, we're using this, we're not using this. I mean, as I said before, I think that in the media space, this has already kind of not been a thing, but it's already arisen. I mean, with Getty Images for the past sort of year and a half, they have offered an ability for all their media partners who use Getty stock images to create their own, like you can pay a little bit extra and access this AI generation tool. And I think that in the media sphere, this is already happening, or at least already being discussed. I am hoping that there's going to be a little bit more chatter. I mean, I find it really fascinating, the perspective that H&M is taking, that this can, AI can also be used to give some economic value back to creators, back to people.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's something that I'm excited to see more of over the coming weeks. So yeah, and if anyone has any great examples out there, we would love to see them.
Drop in the comments.
Yeah, I think that I'm really fascinated to, like, as I said before, I think that human intelligence is never going to go away. And I love seeing the really creative ways that people can kind of use this technology. You were saying before we jumped on, you were saying to me, we were talking about some of the potential uses, having advertisers in the future be able to advertise us clothes on a digital twin of ourselves, which blew my mind. I hadn't even thought about that either.
Yeah. Well, as a marketer, that's where my brain goes, right? Like I always, think about what's going to be the phasing here. So phase one will be companies injecting AI into what they currently do to do it better, make it faster, cheaper, more efficient, etc. Phase two would be to bring in new products, one or two new products, pilot a new approach to how they deliver their products, market their products, design their products, deliver their customer service, even think about their strategy for the year as a business more broadly. But ultimately, Fee, we will I would imagine, eventually we will be on our feeds and seeing ourselves in the H&M ad, in the Aloe ad. I mean, for a marketer, that's one of the, challenges, right? You want to cast your campaigns, utilizing the right talent that will represent the feeling of your market at any point in time, someone that people can relate to and or aspire to. But ultimately, getting those clothes from that fashion retailer on the actual person that you're trying to sell them to is the ultimate outcome for a marketer. So that's where my mind goes to. That's why we're going to need to have such steely, strong, incredibly open and adaptable brains in this next era, mate. Like, it's a surreal, absurd time. Things are flipping inside out. Things are going to be occurring. But again, this is what happens with humanity, with society. We had the Industrial Revolution, and it was terrifying to consider, well, if machines start doing that job that a human used to do in terms of the craft or building cars or manufacturing, whatever it might be, what's going to happen to all of those people where they got paid for their craft? yes, the market's going to change. The entire economy is going to change. This is what happens in society. We evolve. It's a really fundamental thing. But we're in this intelligence revolution now. And so the way that we think, the way that we adapt, the way that we hold simultaneous truths, it's going to be, it's crucial. We can't get around that fact. I don't think.
And that, it brings us to the other two major kind of themes that were in the changing intelligence pulse that we identified in our report, which were the changing collective intelligence and public discourse, the changing nature of how we talk about things, how we collectively understand things, how we collectively learn, and also economic awareness and participation, which is all about this big shift, especially within the younger generations, a new understanding of how business models work, of how economic models work. And a part of this is led a lot, of course, by money talk. Like there's a huge amount of investment advice, business advice, societal advice coming through on TikTok that is just great. I think there was a crazy stat that like between 2023 and 2024, just in the UK, the amount of financial content on TikTok increased 373% or something insane. So these are real shifts that are already happening, but I think that also influences the way we talk and think about everything else. I mean, so much of the negativity that I'm seeing in my sphere around OpenAI, around ChatGPT 4.0 and its image generation capabilities is the environmental impact.
Yes.
I think there's some, predictions by 2027, the way things are going, that AI will be using as much electricity as an entire country such as the Netherlands. Like we've got, the footprint required for all the data centers. We've got the materials used to make the computers, the end of life burden of those materials of the computer. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of environmental challenges, which is obviously worth knowing. But I also think that maybe 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been as well understood or as well known.
Yeah. The consumer, the citizen is more intelligent, more aware than ever. We're seeing a democratization of knowledge and capability, but that's why it comes back to now the intelligence and the creativity of the human themselves. In the case of economic awareness, we now have a class consciousness that really saw a shift, with Luigi Mangione, with the case that's ongoing in the US right now. That was a real signifier that we saw in the cultural zeitgeist that the underbelly, the underlying feelings of why do those people have a lot of money and those people don't, and those people are suffering. What is this? This doesn't feel right. Yeah, that's class consciousness. Yes, capitalism isn't an equal playing field. Yes, not all people are benefiting from our current economic systems. And when you have a big moment like that, unfortunately, it was a violent, very, very heavy moment in the zeitgeist with Luigi Mangione in Manhattan. But I feel like we all saw this shift of class consciousness, you would call that, of people realizing that there's injustice in the system that they won't stand for anymore. And yes, the environmental impact of technology. Now the consumer and the citizen says, no, that's not good enough. And it's going to have to be figured out, right? Like it's not sustainable to be able to feed these machines to enable the next level of creativity and intelligence in humanity, which is a great possibility. But you're going to have to figure out the environmental impact. It's not sustainable. It's not possible. It's not logical. The humans aren't going to stand for it. There's going to be increased pressure in that space. It's going to be on companies. Again, this is coolnomics, right? Like moving in line with the zeitgeist. That you can no longer get away with some of the things you might have been able to get away with in the eyes of the consumer or the citizen before. So I think that's a really big difference, Fee, that people won't stand for it. Again, these are market forces. People are going to push back if they don't like it. And then that's when the collective intelligence comes into it to all of us together now. Where are we all going together in the next era?
And it is so much louder. But I struggle with this all the time as a business, like living in the capitalist world where we want products and we want to make enough money to feed ourselves and pay our rent and do all that stuff, then really contradicts with us as human beings, especially if you're really sustainably minded, who want to have a really light footprint on the earth and, want to protect. So yeah, it's definitely a strange time. And we will touch on this a little bit more next week. So we'll get stuck into the hedonic wallet, I guess, and really talking about, how to be a consumer in the world and hold the two simultaneous truths of the world is being destroyed by the way we live, and we also want to feel good and still grow and buy things. And it really at the heart, that tension.
That tension, isn't it?
Is at the heart of a lot of what we're seeing happening at the moment. And I just can't wait to, really follow the next week and see where things go. So to wrap us up, we like to end with our Wouldn't It Be Cool If segment. Do you want to go first this week and tell me what you think would be very cool to see?
Sure. Well, my Wouldn't It Be Cool If this week would be perhaps around the public discourse piece and around collective intelligence. Like, wouldn't it be cool if public discourse around news items, rebrands like Jaguar, political ideologies, wouldn't it be great if we were able to engage with our intelligence versus just our outrage? You know, we need to maintain the rage and stand up for what we believe in. Absolutely. I'm an activist. I'm a queer person from back in the day. But in order to move forward together, we're going to have to sort of lace together multiple viewpoints and figure out what is the best move forward with humanity if we all go together. So that's, it's a very big picture that I'm describing there, but I just want to consider, again, that's where, wouldn't it be cool if comes in? It's an ideal. We're establishing an ideal. Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if we could develop our collective intelligence rather than just being outraged and creating more divide and being held in a stagnant position on some of these topics? So that would be my wouldn't it be cool if we could become smarter and not just more outraged?
I love that. That would be very cool. I just kind of took a moment while you were saying that to picture that world. And I mean,
it's utopian, but you got to start there.
Not outside the realm of possibility with the way our intelligence is moving. And also, I think that, it's utopian, but we also, that kind of reality where we lead with intelligence rather than outrage allows for disagreements. We're not saying we think everyone's going to
Yes, real human beings. Yes.
Yeah, no one's going to all be on the same page and be like, we love AI. Yay. Of course, there's going to be people who are like, I will never use it, never in my work. But it would be great if we could all just talk about it intelligently and from a place of reality. My wouldn't it be cool if, spinning a little bit on what you said earlier, if I'm living in this utopian world, I would love it if we can have these creative leaders, government policymakers finding a way to use AI to really protect and nurture humans as well. So use AI for progress, but then make sure that we're not using it to just kick human ingenuity into the dust, and actually, maybe look at ways that it could help fund some universal basic income, see ways that we can put value on the things that humans do, but just make them more efficient, generate new income streams. I would love it if the mindset going forward was like, how do we use AI to better serve the humans that we care for? That would be
crazy idea. That is the question, Fee, isn't it? And then you naturally find yourself in quite a philosophical sort of space, right? Why does the economic system, I mean, we're going back to the last episode now, talking about like capitalism crushing humanity when capitalism should be serving and enabling humanity. Yeah. That seems so logic. And then you start to wonder, well, why isn't it? And then, we look at all of the factors, but wouldn't it be great if AI made it, even that, the idea of, a universal basic income replacing the need for a wage, and then humans, even that, I think, it gives me a funny feeling in my brain. It gives me a very refreshing, beautiful feeling in my mind of like, if humans weren't slaving away just trying to survive and pay their rent and do what they have to do to live on a commercial level, what would they do with their time?
We've written about some studies.
I think we do some bloody beautiful things with our time and make our world a better place and still be creative. Probably, maybe even still run businesses, but it's a different sensibility.
I know there's a few countries that have tried it, or a few areas have tried it, and we've covered them. And, in a nutshell, they found, I mean, these weren't like, they weren't paying people like $100K a year just to live. It was sort of like 20, I think, I can't remember the stats.
Basic income, yeah.
20K to feed yourself, but people still worked. It didn't actually decrease the amount that people worked. Humans want to work. Humans have ideas, but what we don't want is to be so stressed about finding our next meal that we can't even think with our logical brain. So that would be very cool. I'll just put that out into the universe. And
I love what you just did there, Fee. Like, you just introduced nuance into the picture, rather than work bad, human not want to work, which, we all definitely have our days where human not want to work. Absolutely. No, that's not quite the picture. It's humans want to be creative. Humans want to be intellectually stimulated. Humans want to contribute. Humans want to collaborate and come together and create things. It's human to create things. That's not the problem. It's the way that we're rewarded. It's the way that we do the work in office versus out of office, etc. It's it's a lack of value being placed on the actual experience of the human versus the output of the human. So once you start to introduce nuance, you can start to work with the picture rather than just putting it in a box of that. The whole everything about that is bad. We can't do much with that, right? We want to use our intelligence and unpack it. That's a great example, right? That people still want to do things. It changes what they do and the way they do it and the way they feel while they're doing it. Hey, if you can change the fiscal part of the picture.
And maybe that is the, you just touched on it then. Maybe that is the real opportunity and potential silver lining outside of creating cute images on ChatGPT is the fact that AI gives us the opportunity to really place new value on what it means to be human and what we contribute to society, to each other, to community, to the world. And there is so much, the connection that we bring. Yeah, it's a very exciting and interesting time. So I'm looking forward to unpacking it further next week. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. All right, Fee, good to see you. We'll catch you next time.
Don't forget to reach out to us. We're on Coolnomics on Instagram and we're on YouTube and Spotify. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know what you thought about this episode, some of the ideas in it. All right, catch you next time. Bye.